Oh, fancy seeing you here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like we staged this at all.
I had seen, Kyle, you had made a thing on Dragged Across Concrete, but it wasn't the first time I'd heard about the film, and it was something that I want to see. It's got Mel Gibson. It looks like a dirty, gritty crime movie, directed by
S. Craig Zoller.
So he directed a movie called Bone Tomahawk, okay? And the way I found about Bone Tomahawk was I found some kind of article about the most disturbing movies of all time. I think it was either number 1 or top 3, and it's a horror western. Horror and western is just not something you see combined
Sounds like
together.
you're saying horror western.
Horror western. Well, that's what it is. Horror. My Texas ass. So Bone Tomahawk, considered one of the most disturbing, most brutal films ever made. You know, it's one thing to see a movie as disturbing or brutal. There's a lot of lists for so many different things. But the fact that it's a freaking western and the fact that it's a horror film as well, you know, it lives up to its reputation. It's incredibly grotesque. It's incredibly brutal. However, every single character in the movie is incredibly richly textured and developed. What's funny is it couldn't be more of a different movie than Dragged Across Concrete. However, it has some similar themes. One, he conveys pure evil darkness, these savages living in the mountains and the boonies, and even the Native Americans, normal Native Americans, stay away from them. They're like, no, this is a whole different breed of people, like we don't mess with them. Okay, fast forward, Dragged Across Concrete.
It's a modern classic in my opinion. I think it's a movie that I say over and over again. I've heard no one else say this, and I still believe it. If the movie was made between 2005 and 2010, it would have been nominated among the Best Picture nominees.
100%.
Yes. And that movie, like think of the movie that one of the movies that won Best Picture in that time, in 2007, I believe, is No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
That movie is fucking gritty and is
cut from the same cloth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said. It is an amalgamation of Michael Mann's movies like Heat and Quentin Tarantino's movies.
You have the police officers, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, and then you two have the two childhood friends. And, you know, you have them and you see that both pairs have their criminality and they have their underworld belly side to them. But then you also see that they also like have families they want to support and that they're trying to get things done. You know, you got Mel Gibson, his daughter's living in the hood and she gets threatened all the time. His wife is sick and she has physical conditions. And you have Vince Vaughn, who's trying to propose to his girlfriend, and they get caught for police brutality.
Which is very relevant. I mean, it was still going on at the time when they filmed it, but it becomes more relevant when 2020 happened and you had the whole George Floyd thing. And I think that's part of why the film became number 1 on Netflix. It shows a humanity to police officers.
Oh yeah.
Whilst also being gritty. It's a film that is not politically correct and people want that, evidently so.
PC culture wants to seep its claws into everything, and you get a movie like Dragged Across Concrete, and what I like about it, you see the bad and good of all parties. But the one party, kind of like the savages from Bone Tomahawk, is you get the professional thieves and killers in Dragged Across Concrete.
You're saying across.
Huh?
You're saying dragged across.
Dragged across?
You're saying dragged across.
My gosh. I think that sometimes my mouth runs quicker than my brain. It like my brain has to keep up with my mouth. So you have these characters that have their dark side and their light side, and then you have characters that are just pure evil, pure sinister. You have you know what I'm talking about, the two henchmen, their character names, like when you look up the movie, is Gray Gloves and Black Gloves. And then you have the one guy that they're scoping out, the main dude.
German.
Yeah. But he's actually just like them because he wears a matching outfit when they actually do the bank heist. And just from the moment you see both Gray Glove and Black Glove.
Actually, I didn't think about that. I didn't think that he was there.
I think he's the one that had that voice
The recorder. Is it
Yeah,
tape?
yeah.
It's a tape recorder. It's an old school tape recorder.
Yeah, and just their like, and like with just how ruthless they are.
Yeah.
And you could just tell they are pure psychotic, just, get the mission done, and the brutality that they display. I mean, they castrate the damn bank manager.
But you don't see it. You see it so slightly, so quickly.
And it's brilliant
as the camera, from the point of view of Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, it's so quick, yet so effective. That's what's so interesting about what Zoller does, is that he will show it to you straight up front, right in front of your face with some violent scenes. But then in others, it will be like that. You look away, you're gonna miss it.
Oh yeah, I think that he is an incredible, daring, modern filmmaker,
Yes.
and I think that every new project that he makes he is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, and the fact that his movies have stirred up the controversy that they have makes him, to me, even more of an intriguing figure in voice.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. The final act of the film, the way they're all going for the loot, essentially, it actually reminded me of a Western film. I actually felt like I just got total Western vibes from that. One moment you think that one group is gonna have the gold, and the next moment you think the other group, and then out of nowhere you have that X Factor, our main guy, come in, and he's like, stands up to Mel Gibson. He's sticking the gun to his neck, and then Mel Gibson getting shot. It's like, it's just like a kind of a cool Western flair.
All consequence. Him getting shot is all a consequence of him being too in control of the situation, being too worried, being too paranoid. He's being too careful because of the high stakes that this character is feeling for the well-being of his family. It's not just him getting money. It's something that he needs to protect his family. He's not going to risk anything. If he was just doing it out of a selfish reason, he may have worked and negotiated with the dude at the end. As much as I love Mel Gibson in the movie, if I was in that situation and Mel Gibson, his character, stuck the gun up to my neck like that, and I had the gun, I would have done the exact same thing the other guy did. Yeah. Even the way he even said, he's just like, get that gun off my bleeping neck. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was an overreaction. It made me like, I felt like saddened by it, but I also like understood why it ended up. And it also too, to me, created a nice tragic ending. It just is good storytelling. Yeah. Good storytelling. And it's cool that Mel Gibson is in the movie, and that Mel Gibson, it couldn't have been better casting. And him and Vince Vaughn together just make for just such a nice alpha male mashup. It's cool seeing Vince Young. How do you pronounce his last name? Not Vince Young, Vince Vaughn. There we go. I am just like, you're on a roll. I haven't anything to drink. I haven't smoked anything, and I'm just like on a roll. So Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, the way they play their parts and the way they do their scenes together, there's just this ingrained chemistry that you buy immediately. They're each other's work wives, and that's a thing. In the work field that I've been in the last 10 years doing landscaping and manual labor, your co-workers, you get along, they become your work wives. And they just totally, give that vibe. And it's funny is they give each other shit throughout the situations, but then there's these little snippets of they really care about each other. A lot of what that chemistry, the reason that is so well put together and well played out is because those two actors are so professional and well seasoned. It's a great teaming of them being put together. Okay, so the younger black child friend is played by Tori Kittles. And then the Spawn, I call him Spawn, Michael J. White. And they... Jai White. Yeah. And I really quite enjoyed their dynamic too. Because, they're criminals, but they're criminals with a conscience. They are, and it's the perfect, in the way they are reacting to the just horrific brutality of the three thieves, and they're driving, it is settling in with them. Not only are they being disturbed by what's going on in the back, them having that girl as lady as hostage, but it's also seeping into them like, we're probably gonna not get out of this alive. Which leads to why they react the way they do when they finally get to the warehouse, in the middle of nowhere. Interesting enough, a little backstory, because I was looking at an interview with Michael Jai White. Everyone had heard the controversial drunk tirade rants of Mel Gibson in the late 2000s, and everybody, writes him off and stuff.
You need medication. You know how to fucking push my buttons, and it is not going to work with us. It's not. I can't get like this anymore.
The woman that he was married to was an utter succubus. When you find out what she did, she doesn't sound that way over the phone because she knows she's being recorded. So she sounds timid and soft, like she's the victim. She drove Gibson to a point of breaking. You can hear it in his voice.
Oh yeah.
Not to excuse everything that he said,
I think Mel Gibson.
but there's a reason that it's not because he was an alcoholic that he was doing that. He was driven to that madness.
Oh yeah, and
That Mad Max madness.
And I have reason to believe that Mel Gibson. I don't want to make presumptions, but it wouldn't surprise me if he deals with bipolar. You know, and just when your highs are highs and your lows are lows. But it's just like a lot of people that might have certain struggle with things that most people don't have to struggle with. It's like there's this compensation in their ability to create and express themselves through art. Well, Michael Jai White, he was getting some pushback from people that he was signed on to make this movie with the evil, horrible, crazy Mel Gibson. And he goes, you know what? I like to give people a chance. And he goes, I show up on set, and make no mistake, if I'm on set or anywhere, I don't care how big someone is, if they disrespect me, they have problems. He goes, I show up on set. Mel Gibson comes up to me like a fanboy and starts going on about how he loves my work.
As a person who I feel like I can judge people pretty well, you know, I feel like I could tell the difference with somebody just shining me on.
And he goes, honestly, Mel Gibson is just that classic, just alpha male, kick back, relax, likes to have a good time, make people feel comfortable. And I love hearing stories like that.
Well, you have examples of Jodie Foster. She first worked with him on Maverick in the 90s. And ever since then, they built a friendship. Even through all of the bullshit, she still stuck by him.
I know that he has struggles, and when somebody's struggling, you don't run away from them. You know, you love them and you stand close to them.
She is loyal, and she's a friend. He's a friend, and will always be. Normally, you see people disown each other.
Let me tell you something really trippy. The success of Marvel stems back to Mel Gibson. Do you know why?
No,
when
explain
Robert
that.
Downer Jr., when he was in the dumps, in the shit, okay, drugged out, cast aside, Mel Gibson took Robert Downey Jr. under his wing and encouraged him and challenged him and was a friend to him, helped pick him up. Okay, the success of 2008's Iron Man is what catapulted the Marvel like really going. I'm making a big statement, but Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is the cornerstone to that whole cinema universe this last decade.
Uncontroversial thing to say, it's true.
Well, it's a big statement, okay? Sometimes, you know, we get excited about the food we're eating on the plate, but sometimes you got to be thinking about who is seasoning that bad boy in the kitchen, okay? So yeah, tractor costs concrete.
It's such a draw. And the fact that the movie went under the radar for so long is astounding to me. I went to visit a buddy during Thanksgiving of last year, and we sat down and we started watching the movie. And I could tell there was a reticence within him about the slow burn, the patience that the movie has with itself. And then there were nitpicks that he was giving of, dude, the police precinct is in a high rise when they go to the office. Police offices, they're not in skyscrapers. And
he isn't just in the police station, he's like with like the head honcho like up in his office.
It's not a deal breaker. For one thing, it's visually striking to have it be in a high rise. You know, if it was in a dank, ordinary police precinct, it would just, we've seen that all the time.
And you know what? Where the rubber meets the road, it's a beautifully shot scene.
The whole movie is fucking beautifully shot.
Yeah, but even that scene in itself, the movie's cinematography is just so patient and so set. Just letting the actors act in just solid camera work, you know, just shot. I just loved it. The natural lighting and the environments that they create. You know?
It feels very urban at times. And
you feel like you're right there. It's got that same feeling that you get when I was watching Bone Tomahawk. Have you seen Bone Tomahawk?
Oh yeah,
yet? You
seen
see
it twice.
I didn't know you seen Bone Tomahawk. I was over there talking about it. Well, you're just such a patient.
I think I first saw it during 2020, during the shutdowns.
You and I watched it around the same time. What did you think of Bone Tomahawk?
It's a classic Western now.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Even the title, Bone Tomahawk. Such a cool ass title. That director, I mean, he wrote these movies. There's just amazing titles. And what's the other? I didn't see the middle movie, Cell Block 44. What was it?
Brawl on Cell Block 99.
I need to watch that.
You'll love it.
I'm sure I will.
It's very gritty.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not as emotionally profound. It doesn't have as much in-depth, eclectic cast of characters. It's specifically about Vince Vaughn, but the brutality in the movie, you'll love the grittiness of it. You'll like it.
Yeah, my brother, bless his heart, I had told him about Bone Tomahawk, and then one day both of us were off, and he comes up and pesters me. He goes, "Hey, show me that movie Bone Tomahawk." I'm like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
And my brother, he's a pastor, okay? And he loves good movies. He loves good, gritty, westerns and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, I'll watch this movie with you, but I'm warning you. And you get to that scene,
Yeah.
they take the dude and they scalp him, and they shove his scalp in his mouth to muffle him, and then they put him upside down. And oh man, my poor brother, he got flushed. Getting up to leave, he goes, "Dude, I do not want to watch this." I was like, "Bro, I warned you.
You want to know why one of the reasons that scene is so effective and visceral for people is because the entire movie before that, a lot of the violence is either off screen or seen from a very far view away. So there's that build up. There's violence happening, but I haven't seen it. The audience's subconscious is thinking that. So when it's fucking full force in your face when it happens in the third act, it blows people's minds. It's effective unto itself, but when you add the context of that and how Zoller directed that, because you would have another director say Eli Roth would have directed that movie. He would have had violence from the beginning. It would have been brutal throughout the movie because he's not a subtle director at all. He doesn't have any restraint, unfortunately. Zoller is a masterful director.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
I could see him winning an Oscar.
He would have been nominated if the movie was, like I said, if it was made in the early 2000s.
Jennifer Carpenter's performance, she could have won a Best Supporting Actress for that performance.
She's in the movie for like 10 minutes.
And she could have won an Oscar
Easy.
for that.
Yeah.
She could have won an Oscar for
Yeah.
that. I may be incorrect when I say this, but as far as hearing people talk about her, she's a very underrated actress.
Yeah.
She conveys that emotional obsessiveness and intensity, and the way her acting style and her emotional acting style is so perfect in the time she is on screen and Dragging Across Concrete. It is so believable. Her, not wanting to leave her baby behind, and the way she conveys it is so raw and it is so realistic. And even when she gets her fingers blown off, and how that in itself is not even phasing her because she's in shock, which is very realistic.
Yes.
She's more interested in talking about her baby before she dies.
Can you give this to my son?
So
fucking blows her face off after that.
It's heart-wrenching, but it's so believable and realistic. You know what I mean? And her acting is just, that's what I wanted to bring
just
up.
totally empathetic.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And you think to yourself when she comes up, you're like, oh, okay, she's in this. She's going to be a new player in the film. And just such a brilliant
Maybe she would
curveball.
get kidnapped. And
They could have put so many different actresses in that. And I'm sure a lot of them would have done a good job to put.
Well, she was in Cell Block
Oh,
99.
was she?
Yeah. That's how she had a relationship with Zoller.
Yeah.
Another performance in the film so many of everyone's great in that movie. Tory Kittles he's the main character of the movie.
Yeah, he is.
He bookends the movie.
Yeah.
The movie starts out with him, it ends with him.
Mhm.
He is essentially the main character.
Yeah.
And his performance is so confident and subtle.
Mhm.
It's not showy.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
It's
He's doing what he got to do. He's doing what he's got to do.
It's another performance that would have been. That movie is so underrated, and I'm so happy that it's being acknowledged.
It's going to stand the test of time.
It is. It's
In
begun to.
2019. I didn't even
No,
hear
it came
about
out in 2018.
Oh.
It was filmed a year or two prior, and there was the producers in the studio, Lionsgate, was having some, issues. Blah 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 blah. The movie just had bad luck, and thankfully it's turning around now.
Dragged across concrete. And that's the kind of movie, you know, I'm going to sit down and have a dad date with my dad. Because everything about it, the acting, everything about it, the story, just completely is everything that my dad taught me to appreciate in good art, in good film.
When I texted you right before you were watching, I said, that movie is like sitting down, smoking a fine cigar with 150 proof bourbon.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like 15, 20 minutes into it and you sent me that text, and even in the first 20 minutes, I was like, just from what I've seen in these first 15, 20 minutes, I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah. Even when the movie's slow, I was just enthralled in the slow burn aspect of it as I was when it picked up.
Isn't that amazing? Because I wanted to ask you, because there are slow moments, particularly the one where they're at where they're doing the stakeout and they're in the car. He's just eating a sandwich. Did you find that scene or any other scene to be, they could have trimmed that a little bit, you know, blah 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 blah? Did you ever feel that?
Nope. Because it's really realistic.
Yeah, I didn't feel that either. Like the movie is, when you look at it, it's a 2.5 hour movie. I think maybe even longer, closer to 3 hours. But it's a testament to a great director because he's able to make a movie that has slow burn, but he's able to make it work.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, man, you know, I growing up on a fine diet of Mel Gibson and growing up a big fan of the Lethal Weapon franchise, which we've never discussed before.
So you're excited for 5? And apparently Mel Gibson is going to direct it.
And it's going to be brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
But growing up, having that scene where Mel Gibson, Vince Vaughn has died, and Mel Gibson just takes things to the next level and like pretty much slams his car and entraps the bad guys inside the van, and they're forced to be coming out the one, and watching Mel Gibson with his revolver just like going into that, like, I wouldn't say action hero mode, but just that badass dude with a gun and just being just like Mel Gibson. I used to, you know, the fanboy within me and the little Benjamin watching Lethal Weapon as a kid when I wasn't allowed to, but watching it anyways, you know what I mean?
I just love the way the dialogue also is so sparse and sharp.
This guy's like a cigarette commercial.
It's very straight to the point.
So Tory Kittle says,
Nigga.
And Mel Gibson says, right back at you, some form of that, I'm paraphrasing.
Likewise.
Maybe it's unintentional, but it calls back to those obscene phone calls Mel Gibson had recorded of him. And it's just that there's a slight self-awareness of it. That kind of dialogue breathes freedom. And I love that it's uncensored, because so many films would not do that today. I mean, it's a kind of film that would be, as it ended up being, an under the radar film because of traits like that.
And it also,
and now that it's on the number one spot on the number one streaming service. Explain to me that. Like, it tells me that America actually likes good films still.
Yeah. People love controversial stuff. People love doing what the media and critics and stuff are telling them not to do. People are like, oh, you're telling me what I should think of this movie before I watch it? Okay, we'll see about that. I'm gonna watch it. That's pretty dope when you like go back and edit this. You can piece it together in a coherent way that it all flows. That's dope.